Welcome to the 46th lesson of SmartKnitter Knit Instructions Level 2. In this lesson, we will demonstrate techniques to correct issues encountered when casting on after the initial setup. Let's translate the first panel example here. We can see that the Revell yarn feeder 7 is brought in all the way from the left side to knit the cast-on Revell yarn section on the right. This is because feeder 7's default yarn end position is on the left. With the initial setup courses being an even number of rows, feeder 7 will be returned to the left. To correct this issue, simply duplicate a row of the initial setup tubular stitch row. Translate again, and we can see feeder 7 now rests on the right after the initial setup and can participate in the later cast-on without being brought from the opposite side of the panel. Let's look at another example. Upon translation, we can see that there is a prompt warning that feeder 1 cannot be brought in for knitting. Return to feeder setup and swap the Revell yarn feeders as shown. Translate again, and the warning prompt is resolved. Let's look at another example. This is a rotated batwing sleeve panel with a side waist cast on after knitting the sleeves. Let's look at the original translation. We can see the cast-on Revell yarn feeder for the right side keeps tucking at the edge to lock the yarn. This would waste knitting and manual removal time. Return to feeder setup. The Revell yarn feeder for the right side was not set as a Revell yarn feeder. Check this property and translate again. We can see the tucks are gone now. Move on to another example. We can see feeder 5 knits tucks and floats to bring the feeder in and out of the knitting area. This is because the yarn end direction is not set to right. Go to feeder setup, check the yarn end on the right side, and translate again. Now feeder 5 is brought to the right side during cast-on and will not knit tucks and floats in the panel area. Let's look at an example with bird's-eye jacquard. Translate the original file. We can see there are incorrect knitting actions on both sides. This is caused by the wrong number of rows in the cast-on section. To correct this, return to SmartGraph and add an extra row of front tubular stitch to both sides of the cast-on section. First, duplicate a row of front tubular stitch, then move the row after the original back tubular stitch row. Do the same on the right side. Switch to zone mode and change the full needle row and the tubular rows into distinct zones respectively. By changing these rows into different zones, these rows will not be translated as jacquard. Assign the feeders and translate again. Now the knitting actions are corrected. Let's look at one more example with cast on both sides. We will demonstrate methods to fill in patterns for these panels. Let's draw a simple pattern repeat. Select the repeat area. Click the Fill tool, then Pattern Fill. Check the options as shown. The panel is broken into two sections with the cast on in the middle. During pattern fill, only contiguous areas can be filled. Let's use a special technique to help with pattern fill. Add the pattern to the image cache list for later use. Select the cast on sections. Change the Ravel yarn colors to color 31. Go to Knit Tools and select Hide Lines with color 31. The panel is now linked together as a whole. Click on the pattern repeat in the cache list. Set the pattern fill parameters as shown. Click to fill the pattern onto the panel body. Go to Knit Tools again and select Show Lines with color 31. Change the Ravel yarn sections back to their original colors. Now the pattern is filled correctly. This marks the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching.